I can remember it as if it was yesterday. I was 8 years of age. I was out playing at the back of our semi-detached council flat in London, and Dad called me in just as well because it was raining. He was at his table and he called me over. He said, "Son, I've got something to tell you." And I went over and he leaned across the table so close to me that I could smell his brill cream. And he said, "Son, I've had enough. We're off to Australia." And that's where it started. We became 10-pound Poms. We got on the Fair Sea in 1959. And we were going for a new life. Mum, Dad, us 5 kids. They never had 2 bob to rub together. We got on the Fair Sea, a 6-week cruise. Not bad for a kid like me, but Mum and Dad, they never had 2 bob to rub together. Actually, all their life they never had 2 bob to rub together. And that's what sort of prompted me to go the way I went. I'll give you an example. About 2/3 of the way through our cruise, we were heading for Fremantle. Dad came to me and said, "Dad, son," he said, go around the decks and pick up those cigarette butts. Bring them round to my room. So I did, and it made me sick. Dad would unravel the cigarette butts and get the good baccy out of them and roll himself a smoke. And I thought to myself then and there, when I grow up, I would never be so broken-assed as to have to sniff around picking up cigarette butts to roll myself a durry. And that stayed with me all my life. And the Australian trip, it was supposed to be our salvation. It wasn't. I didn't mind it. I was a kid. I'd play around in the bush, catching snakes, doing all sorts of things that kids do. I wrote some good chapters on that. But Mum and Dad, 2 summers in the stinking hot immigration hostel, it just wasn't for them. And eventually Dad sort of, he nearly lost the plot, because everybody there, they really weren't comfortable. Some people say, when I look at some of the historical records, they said, you know, it was good for them to re-establish themselves. But my parents never had anything. But anyway, they when my young brother was born, so there's 6 of us kids in this hut, and we got, after 2 summers, we went to Christchurch, where Mum and Dad were given, can you believe this? They were given a 4-bedroom Summerhill stone house, brand new. Dad got a job at the railways for life. He thought, government job for life. He worked there, and they lived in that house until they both died. So they were happy. But this kid, Michael Brown, he wasn't. I became an introvert. I felt like I was always being naughty and upsetting my mother. And I wanted to please her, really, because they're just lovely people. And being religious, a Catholic lady, very much so. Her and I, we got on very well. And when I was 14, I wasn't doing well at school. I don't know why. I spoke to this priest and he said, "Do you want to become a priest?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'll give that a go." And they shunted me over to Australia for a year, and it must have cost my parents, look, I don't know where they got the money from, but you don't go to these boarding school type novitiate, they called it, where you learn to be a Catholic priest. Anyway, after a year, I didn't have the smarts, and they told me, "Don't come Monday." So I was really upset about that. I couldn't look Mum and Dad in the face, and I'd grown into a big boy. By the time I was 15, I was big and strong, 6'1", and I just wanted to go to work and help pay my parents back. And I know they were both disappointed. So I had really good farming jobs during the school holidays. I paid my way through school. I was the first one in my class to get a motorbike license. I bought a motorbike. It was going well, but I wasn't interested in school and ended up getting a couple of jobs. And when I was 17, I upset my parents again. I met this lady and her 2 children who was married and wasn't Catholic, and I moved in with her. And once again, I upset mum and dad. But this lady, I ended up marrying her, and we were together for 20 years. So I knew we were going to be okay. And that is all about my coming of age memoir. It sort of ends there, but it's very interesting what happened at the 10-pound pom camp. I was, like I say, 10, 11 years of age, and I can remember stuff, and I kept records, and I wrote this memoir from the eyes of a 10-year-old. Now, the 10-pound pom parents, like mine, if they were alive today, they'd be 105, 107. They're all dead. So no one's got a record of it. And I'm getting people asking me about what their grandfather did. You know, did my granddad, he reckons he used to catch snakes around the camp. Is that true? And I'm thinking, yeah, I know that. So on a Facebook post, I put that a paragraph out of my chapter on catching snakes, and it went viral. And it's not the general public. It's these people who are the descendants of the 10-pound poms who sacrificed everything to come over here. They're now sitting on the Gold Coast sunning themselves, grateful for their great-great-grandies for doing what they did. So I'm really proud for that. But anyway, that's a bit of a chit-chat about a boy's journey. There it is there. That's my first memoir, and that's a really good scene that. I had that sketch drawn, because that's me sitting in the bush in Australia thinking about what life was all about. And even at that age of 9 or 10, I just couldn't figure out how come mum and dad were always broke.